It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
All right, my friends, so what do we learn about nature? What do we learn about going out and exploring different things, and how do we get our kids to get rid of the phones and get more involved in what their life is all about, or even ourselves? Well, I'm happy to have on the show today Cindy Ross. Cindy is the author of, she has 7 books. This book is called The World is Our Classroom. Very interesting as to what this is all about. It's fascinating, folks. It really is fascinating. And Cindy, thanks for coming on the show.
Sure, Sam.
It's been rather hectic, as you know, today, so we finally were able to get to the point here. Let's talk about Cindy Ross, okay? You know, 7 books, nature, you've learned so much, and as your children have learned, you have, how many children do you have? 2. Learn from, but what makes a writer get involved with a theme and then continues to process what you learn from that and how people could benefit from it?
Well, most of my books are about long distance hiking and getting out into nature, whether it's a book called Kids in the Wild, A Family Guide to Outdoor Recreation, or this one. And it's just my life, Sam. I started out as a long distance hiker on the Appalachian Trail 40 years ago and wrote my first book, which has been in print for 38 years. And I think you write best about what you know best, and that's my most favorite thing to do, is to be outdoors hiking and doing long distance adventures, and it just turned into my livelihood because my background is fine arts painting as an artist, but I have a lot to say about nature and the outdoors. And then after raising and educating my kids this way for 25 years, I realized how much I knew that I could share with parents and grandparents to help them. So I decided to write this book about 10 years ago when I saw how my children were growing up and being so hugely successful and happy. I thought that there was a lot I could share.
One of the you said you were on the show before, and I'm recalling, was one area is where you were on a hiking or something, and you had some severe weather, or you had to make do for yourself, or was it?
That was about my last book called Scraping Heaven, and I took my family across the Continental Divide. My children were really little, and they rode llamas for 3,000 miles.
Okay, yeah. Tell me about that experience.
Well, we started when they were 1 and 3, and that's when we really decided that how much we were teaching them by being out there. When they were learning so much about the natural world, just when they were 1 and 3 even, we hiked Colorado and got all our llamas for free from the Rocky Mountain Llama Association. And we decided to buy our own llamas, came back here to Schuylkill County, and then went back up to the Canadian border, and then hiked 500 miles every summer till we got to Mexico.
No, so tell me, I'm thinking, how do you ride the llamas?
The kids rode the llamas. We walked.
How do you take care of them? Where do you get the food and all that?
Well, all the world's a salad bar to a llama, so we didn't have to bring food for them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And where did you go with the llamas?
We crossed the whole Rocky Mountain range from Mexico to Canada.
And you do your own camping?
Yeah.
You provide your own food, etc. Okay. Now there's a lot of people that think that's exciting, but they would not want to do that, okay?
Right, and then my new book is not about that, but it's about what we learned out there.
That's the piece.
And also, there's so many different chapters, whether it's learning from living history, or all kinds of topics, learning from our ancestors. It all has the theme of using nature and or travel to help shape your education and supplement it with whatever way you're going to school. Because our kids went to school in Blue Mountain School District for 7 years, but then the last 6 years they taught themselves. They were in charge of their education.
Right. So looking at this, there are some areas that you said about negotiating childhood development, talking about if you can't travel, you can certainly read or explore nature. And then, of course, you mentioned about parents raising the children, okay, and how what they can learn. And these are interesting things I think people would like to know, okay. Now the book explains a lot of this. Something here, I find this interesting. There's a lot of interesting quotes here. front yards are boring. Backyards tell stories. That's interesting. I can recall my wife and I were at a convention in Arizona, in Scottsdale, and they had different tours. And one of the tours, they said, we're going to go on a desert tour tomorrow. And I says, desert tour? What are you, crazy? What am I going to go on a desert tour for? I don't need to see desert. Well, let me tell you something, Cindy, and you would appreciate this. I learned so much on that desert tour about what the desert's all about, and the plants, and and that's a desert. So I could imagine what you've experienced.
The deserts are pretty cool places.
Yeah. Have you ever done a desert?
Oh yeah, we've crossed the desert for hundreds and hundreds of miles. Yeah,
Yeah.
walked across them. Yeah,
I mean,
and rode our mountain bikes across them.
Yeah. What did you find exciting about the desert?
Mostly the quality of the light, and the fact that you can't get away from the sun, and so you go to places that are extreme like that, and it teaches you to appreciate things that you do have, like water and shade and things like that. And there's nothing like taking something away from you to realize how important and how much you love it and need it. So if nothing else, the desert's good for that.
Yeah, well, then we learn about plant life and animal life, and what happens in life. Going through the chapter, learning from play. All right, and you're saying here, backyards tell stories. What do you mean by that?
Well, that is metaphorical to encompass your larger backyard. Like, we live at the base of Hawk Mountain, and we live near Pennsylvania State Game Lands, and I wanted to raise my kids at a place where I could use public lands to teach them and to have experiences, whether it was inner tubing down the Little Schuylkill River, going to Hawk Mountain Sanctuary and taking their workshops, that are free for people that are members there. So it's not just the backyard, in your own backyard, but it's Schuylkill County and our rivers and our forests here, and programs in the Student Conservation Association and the nature centers. All those I consider your backyard.
Do you find when a person's creativity, whether it's writing, whether it's music, whether it's artist, whatever, in creativity, you find that trickles down into their lives and what they do, and learning abilities and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. And when you're in the natural world, it stimulates your senses in a way that nothing else can. Not a television, nothing else can stimulate your senses like being in the natural world. And so creativity goes into every corner of your life. Like there's a book called Brand New Mind by Dan Pink, and he's saying that the corporations and the big businesses aren't looking for MBAs, Masters of Business Administration. They're looking for MFAs, Masters of Fine Arts, because these creative thinking students are thinking outside the box, and it doesn't matter what they went to school for. It's a way of thinking that they want them in their business, in their corporation. So that's what happens when you're in the natural world and you're not connected to your TV and your phone, and your senses are stimulated. You turn into this hugely creative person, and it doesn't matter what you choose to do for your occupation. We need to have individuals that are thinking outside the box to solve all these big problems that we have in the world.
How old were you when you started getting involved with nature and
I hiked the Appalachian Trail when I was 24 and wrote my first book called A Woman's Journey on the Appalachian Trail that's been in print for 38 years. So I was 24. My husband was 19 when he hiked the trail.
When we're talking about some of the things that you get from the book, okay, and you're talking about the earth, nature, and what it brings to a person, I find sometimes when my wife and I are out maybe gardening or digging or putting flowers in or whatever, trimming, and you feel a lot better, don't you?
Well, it's funny, Sam, because I just saw this study that there's microbes actually in the soil that work the same way on your brain as an antidepressant, and they make you happy by having the soil go through your skin and breathing it. So there's a scientific reason that you feel happier, and it is actually changing your brain.
So I'm going to go and get a ton of topsoil and put it outside and play in it every day.
And take your shoes off too when you go. Because there's a thing called grounding and earthing, so that the magnetic fields from the earth supposedly go into your body and realign and make you happier too.
You know, it's interesting when you should say that, because you find a lot of landscapers and people who work outside in the, landscaping or with the earth. They have I mean, it's hard work sometimes, but they have a whole different kind of feeling about that.
Yep. Compared to businessmen in offices and
yeah,
buildings.
Yeah. when you're talking about, all right, so how do we get people involved in nature? Okay, one of the things you says, you like to travel. Okay, my mother used to read a lot about my mother seemed like she traveled around the world, but she read about Paris and Italy and Morocco or whatever, all these different towns, and she read about them. Of course, she couldn't afford to go to them, but she learned. She was an avid reader. But for those people who can travel, okay, what do you recommend, and how do you suggest some of the things that they should be doing when they travel, so they can appreciate, the world and being a classroom? Hold that thought. I'm talking to Cindy Ross, folks. The name of the book, okay, is "The World Is Our Classroom." Okay, it's very interesting. Get a lot out of this, and you'll find out that how many of you people are this all the time on the phone. I mean, it's just like people are attached to them, and they're missing out, I think, on a lot that nature could give them. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about it. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Interesting show as usual. Remember, 24/7, ssptv.com. And if you have a cell phone, just go and Google it, and you'll see all the shows. Better than the app. And you'll learn a little bit about everything that we're doing, particularly our show today with Cindy Ross. She's the author of the book, The World Is Our Classroom. Very interesting book, and she breaks everything down here. Okay, you're talking about Chapter 2 here, learning from history. Okay.
Living history.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, learning from living history. Okay. Tell me about that, because then you're bringing it home with you.
So when I was growing up, history was just memorizing facts, and my brain doesn't work very well like that. So I did not like history, and one of the reasons I wrote this book, Sam, is so that people understand that we should be learning our whole lives. It isn't something that ends with 12th grade or college. That to instill a love of learning in our kids and ourselves. And so I wanted my kids to love history. And the best way, I think, to learn anything is to be part of it and to immerse yourself in it, not just studying facts. So we tried to do a lot of living history events where they dressed up in period clothing and volunteered, like at German festivals or black powder rendezvous or things like that. Like even coming to the Eckley mining village, you can't. Maybe you could be a volunteer, I'm not sure about that, but there's lots of opportunities where families or kids could dress in period clothing and be part of that. And that way they'll learn about that period. They could turn into a historian. It doesn't matter. What we're trying to do is to make them love to learn.
I like going to museums. Okay, my wife and I like going to museums, and like when we traveled to Paris, or when we were in Spain and Italy, particularly Rome. I mean, well, anywhere. I mean, it's just amazing. And you get appreciativeness of what the artist and creativity and how that makes you feel. And I think it basically, you try to learn from history, but live it a little bit better. You mentioned about events. All right. I'm not like crazy about dressing up in going to a pre-war or Civil War. However, but I would like to see it.
Right.
Okay. So are there events? I know you list some in here. Some of the year.
Well, they're all. Pennsylvania has some of the best, historic areas and parks, and even Conrad Weiser. They have events there that you can go to. The part about dressing up is mostly for the kids, for them to get involved and immersed in it. But Pennsylvania. You can go to the museum, our state museum site, and find out about events all over the state. But they're everywhere.
Well, I find that if you can't, all right, so what would be, if you are going to make a recommendation for people to travel to appreciate, I know there's a zillion, but I mean, from your experiences, what would be a place that you would recommend people going to travel and learning from nature in different areas?
Well, learning from nature and learning from travel, like it kind of intermixes with our family. But if I had to tell families to go one place to travel, it would be back to their homeland to find their relatives, regardless if they're there anymore. I mean, my family's Sicilian and Polish, and we went back there for a month.
What's your family?
Sicilian and Polish.
Oh, you're half Italian. Oh, that's interesting.
I'm a Borzolino.
Are you?
Yeah.
From Sicily?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went back and found our relatives, helped with the olive harvest, and for the same price as going to Disneyland, you can go back to your homeland, and it gives our kids a sense of who they are and where they came from, and what all goes into your heritage and your personality and all kinds of things. And so there's a whole chapter in there about learning from our ancestors. But we spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who lived to be 103 years old, because we couldn't travel with her. But
The Italian side?
No, Polish.
Polish side. Yeah. We're in Poland.
Down south.
Did you go there? Did you visit?
Yeah, near Krosno.
Yeah. So you went there. So both nationalities are fantastic. I grew up in Partysville. There was Polish, Slavic, and Italian, and they're all beautiful people. Who had polipski, who had spaghetti meatball, and we just loved each other because there was no prejudice at all. But when you learn, you got a different perspective from the Polish side versus the Italian side.
Well, my husband is German Swiss, and so we went back to find his family, and going to Germany and all the Pennsylvania Germans that live around here, you have a good idea of what their personality is, which is the complete opposite of a Sicilian. So,
yes.
So my kids, it was good for them to understand what makes them up, and they have their father's, kind of quiet, introverted side. They have my affectionate, outgoing side, and so who am I going to be? Who am I going to decide, is me? And so it really gives them a whole different perspective about themselves when they learn about their heritage.
Yeah. What did you learn? Did you have your children with you when you went to?
Yeah.
What did they? How did they respond to traveling?
Well, they've always responded. We started when they were 3 and 5. Went to the Czech Republic. Oh, yeah, they've been to 15 countries before they went to college. So we never go less than a month. So we went to Ireland. We rode our tandem mountain bikes around the island for 6 weeks, staying at hostels. They were only 6 and 8, something like that. So
You have no problem doing that, huh?
No. I have a problem not doing it.
See, to me, that I'm used to going to a nice hotel, then going on a tour, coming back to that nice hotel.
We like to be in charge of our travel. We like to do
and you don't find that as an inconvenience or anything?
It's a little more challenging, but you're in more control. You don't have to deal with some group of people that you might not have the same interests or pace or whatever.
What did your children bring back to them, or as you saw them developing, from being exposed to understanding nature? And you don't have to do what you do to understand nature, okay? We're talking about today, they're addicted to these cell phones, okay? We use them, which is important, but however, I think sometimes, including my own grandchildren, I love them dearly, but that's all they are. They're always on the phone. I mean, doing...
You have to take them someplace where there's no cell service, then they forget that they like it so much.
Well, I think anyone, you could become inhibited if you just continue just not to explore what's out there,
I know, we stop growing.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
And we're really supposed to keep being stimulated and growing until the day that we die.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's fun. It's fun to learn. It's fun to meet new people and hear new ideas. And it's what keeps us young and alive too.
You were in China.
Yep.
Okay. What did you? I guess each country brings different things. Okay. Primarily, what did you learn from China? What were some? How about the people there? And
The people were nice compared to some places we've been, but my children were there teaching English for a year, so we went to visit them after they were there for 6 months. I was surprised by so many things, and I talk about it in the book.
Yes,
It's impeccably clean. They have old women sweeping and cleaning the guardrails on the super highways out there. I mean, there's not a leaf anywhere. It's impeccably clean. And I didn't see poverty like we thought we would see. And everyone is well dressed. They didn't have heat in really nice restaurants because they just don't turn the heat on at all. So that was amazing. And even the kids in the middle of school had to wear down jackets and hats and gloves to school, and they just accepted it being freezing cold because they didn't turn the heat on, the government. Just crazy things like that. They spit everywhere, even in the nicest restaurants, because everyone's got respiratory diseases. And it's like, whoa, you're in a nice restaurant, and then this professional person you're having dinner with just hawkers on the floor. It's just amazing. All kinds of weird things about it.
Folks, because the world is our classroom. Cindy Ross, how do we get this book?
I have a website that I think they're showing, so you can get it from me if you want an autographed copy. My email, I think, is being shown, and also Amazon or any bookstore can order it.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to come back to wrap it up with Cindy right after this break. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, 24/7, SSPTV.com. Hey, folks, if you didn't see the 25th anniversary show, you definitely want to go and it's the Let the People Know show. It's 25 years when we started, all the things we did, and a lot of people you'll recommend, you'll see. The world is our classroom. Cindy Ross, and as we're talking, you could see how you get the book. The book explains everything. And wrapping up, you said something about grandparents, etc. What we were talking about.
I want parents and grandparents to understand that they really do have and should play a bigger role in raising and educating their kids. Not to leave it up to the schools. They can't do they can't do it all because there's just so many more challenges in families now. Also, if you want a closer family and you want more love and connection. Family meals, things like that, start to spend time with your kids, take them away, go on hikes, go traveling and visit different cultures and people and things like that. You'll build amazing memories, and then you build this trust and love and relationship, and we don't have that like we used to because of connections to cell phones and things like that. No one talks to each other, and our kids need us. We're smart people, and we love them the most, so we should be spending more time with them.
I think you're so right. If you had that opportunity, we enjoy traveling with our kids. We just did it with our grandchildren, but they have their own lives sometimes. But to try to coordinate everything, when we went to different places, Mexico or Puerto Rico or different areas, they were able to learn, from. And they met a lot of people, which is interesting. We were in Florida, and my grandson and my granddaughters, they met people from Saudi Arabia. Okay, and
it's good for them to broaden their minds about other people.
Yeah, they're communicating.
You can't just stay in Schuylkill County.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. But Cindy, you've been able to take all the traveling that you have and been able to condense it and give us an education from that. And this being your 7th book, I think it's rather interesting, and I applaud you for doing this. In the back, folks, you see the family. Okay,
there's another thing I want to mention too is that as a writer, I always wanted my kids to write and to learn to communicate because that's an important tool. So their writings from about 8 until 25 are in here, little excerpts from their essays and stuff like that. So you can see how they developed as a person.
Yes. Nice having you on the show.
Thank you.
When you do the next book, give me a call and we'll talk about the next book.
It's coming up. It's due.
Get the book. The world is our classroom. Exciting, folks. We'll see you next time.